The ongoing dispute in Nova Scotia over an Indigenous-owned lobster fishery has evolved into a battle over the legal definition of treaty rights to hunt and fish there. Pam Palmater, lawyer and chair in Indigenous governance at Ryerson University, is joining us with more this morning. Pam, we've seen this situation in Nova Scotia running more than a month now take a turn towards how the government defines the term moderate livelihood, because that's the description, part of the description in the 99 Supreme Court decision that affirms the treaty rights to hunt and fish there. We've spoken to both Chief Sachs and to the fishery spokesperson, who both say they just want it defined by the government. But are Indigenous hunting and fishing rights not affirmed elsewhere? That's not the only decision.
No, that's not the only decision. So people have to keep in mind that everyone is focused right now on the Marshall decision, the treaties of 1760 and 61, but we also have other treaties, treaties of 1725-26, treaties of 1752. We also have separately from that Aboriginal rights, and then of course separate from that again are our pre-existing inherent rights due to Mi'kmaq sovereignty over that territory that they've never surrendered. So it's really a bit of a misunderstanding to focus only on what's moderate in terms of a livelihood when all of these other rights protect a much greater portion.
Pam, when the two central parties at the middle of this dispute are both calling on the federal government to please just give us a definition, and the government won't, what does that say to you?
Well, first of all, Sipekne'katik isn't asking the government for a definition. Sipekne'katik has made their own definition and they've enacted their own regulations. They're enacting their own governance over their fishery. What they want the government to come in and do is really address these non-native fishermen, the violence, the threats to their lives, you know, the intimidation tactics for both them and the people that they would sell to. So this is really a problem on the part of, you know, both the non-native fishermen, but also the federal government for not negotiating agreements that fully implement these rights. They've had agreements in the past, but they were just tiny fractions of what their fulsome rights are. And so hopefully the government comes at the table and comes up with a nation-to-nation agreement that's about implementation and not surrendering of rights.
Throughout much of the country, Indigenous rights are affirmed through treaties that were signed, as you mentioned, between 1725 and 1923. Are you concerned at all that what's happening in Nova Scotia could possibly set a precedent to challenge treaty rights, which exist right across the country?
Well, we're always concerned about the levels of violence, but I think the government was very clear in their press conference that, you know, these escalating levels of violence will not stop the federal government from implementing Indigenous rights, and it won't stop Indigenous peoples from exercising their rights. And I think you've seen, you know, throughout history over the decades, whenever there's flashpoints, despite the violence, despite the arrests, Indigenous peoples stay peaceful, they stay strong, and they keep asserting their rights. What really has to be kept in mind, though, is that the treaties across the country, and not every First Nation has a treaty, they're all very, very different. And they speak to different scenarios and different time periods, and there's different things included inside of those treaties. And so you can't really take one and transplant it to another very easily.
Pam, you are Mi'kmaq and your family is from Mi'kmaq territory. How difficult has it been for you to watch all of this unfold in the last month?
Oh, it's been very difficult, especially because we're in COVID. And, you know, being here in Ontario, which seems to be COVID central, it's not prudent to travel to places like Mi'kmaq, the Atlantic region, which has very low levels of COVID. And, you know, it's about not spreading it. So all Mi'kmaq people that live outside of Mi'kmaq, we've had to help from behind the scenes and do our best to support from where we are. But, you know, if this wasn't COVID, I would be there with my family right now.
Pam, thanks for joining us again on Your Morning.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching. If you like this, be sure to subscribe here.
And you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.